Good morning, everyone. My name is Dana Ahmed. I am the representative of Egypt at World Ocean Day, Sustainable Ocean Alliance. I'm an ocean advocate, and I am the founder of EcoSpectrum. It's very nice to see you all here. This is a long-awaited event, and I couldn't be more grateful for everyone that is attending for the first event ever to discuss the intersectionality between ocean conservation as well as autism representation and education, and accessibility in education. We have gathered experts from the MENA region and beyond to speak on their experiences, research, expertise, and most importantly, their unique ocean stories that are going to be heard by our wonderful panelists. This event is co-hosted by 3 different organizations: Climate Generation, Youth Climate Report, and EcoSpectrum. Climate Generation is a non-profit organization aiming to ignite and sustain the ability of educators, youth, and communities to act on the systems perpetuating the climate crisis. Youth Climate Report, founded by one of our panelists, Dr. Mark Terry, is a multi-linear interactive database documentary film project. Youth Climate Report has created and leads a digital map containing videos of climate discussions produced by the global community of youth from 2008 to today. And it is presented on a platform of a geographic information system map of the world. And finally, EcoSpectrum, founded by yours truly, is the first organization in the world that aims to elevate the inclusivity of students and youth on the autism spectrum in climate and ocean conservation discussions. Based in the MENA region, EcoSpectrum contains UN climate and ocean documents that are translated into over 100 languages and adjusted to suit and satisfy the needs of students and youth on the autism spectrum. We essentially aim to start a revolution in representing the autistic and neurodivergent community as valid stakeholders and vital members in the climate and marine conservation movement. At today's event, we're aiming to create waves to accelerate accessible climate and ocean education in the MENA region and beyond, essentially empowering youth on the autism spectrum to take ocean-based action whilst fostering inclusivity in policy-making processes for the sustainable blue future. I will now be introducing our first speaker. Dr. Mark Terry is a Canadian scholar, explorer, and filmmaker. He is teaching currently as an adjunct professor at the Faculty of Environment and Urban Change at York University in Toronto, Canada, and in the Faculty of Arts at Wilfrid Laurier University at Waterloo, Canada. He is also a research fellow at Dadalay Institute for Global Health Research. In 2022, Roman and Littlefield published The Emerging Role of Geomedia in the Environmental Humanities, an anthology of research paper that he and his fellow researcher Michael Hosen co-edited. And in the spring of 2020, his book on documentary film remediation was released by academic publisher Palgrove Macmillan, the Geodoc, Geomedia, Documentary Film and Social Change. Please, Dr. Mark Terry, you can have the floor.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here today. And I have a very brief presentation, but included in that presentation are a couple of short films. So you'll be able to actually see the kind of films that we're talking about. Okay, so I'll explain a little bit more about the Youth Climate Report. It's a partner program of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It dates back to its early incarnation in 2011, and then when it became a geodoc in 2015. Here are the aims and objectives of the Youth Climate Report. Film is a valuable medium for communicating data to international policymakers. Written and peer-reviewed scientific papers can sometimes be a challenge to some elected officials without a scientific background. Film provides a visual context to these papers and often presents compelling visible evidence of climate events around the world. Also, these films made by youth bridge the communications gap between science and policy, as well as between youth and policymaker. Films made each year are presented directly to the policymakers working in the Blue Zone of the COP conference through a series of press conferences and side events just like this. So for ocean education, this year we brought a special film called Turning Tides. This was made by one of my graduate students at York University in Toronto. So each year, YCR tries to create one of these documentary features that match the themes of the COP focus every year. With oceans being this year's theme, we are presenting Turning Tides, Sustainability Measures for Shark Conservation, made by master's graduate Vivian Guido. The film uses underwater photography to demonstrate direct contact sharks and other marine life are having in the Pacific Ocean with plastic pollution. And I have a very short little 1-minute video to show you about this.
The United Nations has taken on a formidable task, but also made some significant commitments towards protecting the ocean with the Sustainable Development Goals. We have a long way to go to achieve those, but many of those goals are almost being met. In many cases, protection doesn't start from the government. It starts from the people. And if you think about Earth Day back in the 1970s, in response to oil spills and pollution in the ocean, the people got mad and they rose up and they said, we don't want this anymore. Going forward 50 years, we need to have that same kind of anger or passion or voice to protect the ocean.
That's beautiful work, eh? Yeah, great photography, I love it. And also, another aim of the Youth Climate Report is try to reach out to those underrepresented communities throughout the world. Those that live in remote locations, indigenous communities, and those who have challenges with physical and mental disabilities. This year we worked in the north of Ghana, specifically with people with mental and physical disabilities, and we created a project that was, I think, altogether about 17 different short films made by these young people, these very brave and talented young filmmakers, actually, telling stories about how climate change impacts on them directly. And the film I'd like to share with you today is made by Carolyn Dari. In the north of Ghana, documentary filmmaker Carolyn Dari reports on how the visually impaired are benefiting from an agricultural program that was introduced by a Belgian activist. Blind farmers in the Tamale region are living sustainable lives as farmers growing crops for themselves as well as for the marketplace. So I'd just like to share this, this beautiful film with you. It's, again, very short, just about 3 minutes.
The year number 1, I remember I did it was it. Nimpala Canada did it as I'm theatre. So I do the year Belgium. Women to know on one in Ghana. So I'm to go one. Catcher as on me to know on a burger team who are guarding Corba. I'm a poor pool. I'm a poor as a man is about. The tree pull at an Lenka, a reaching down to our particular now, and I latress.
And then they did it out. And you're not done for Comampa and a yard for Japan about a damper said, what like it.
I think climate change is no more a mystery. Neither is it a fascination. It's real. And I think farmers are beginning to appreciate the fact that it exists.
Oh, another more interesting. The demand of wow. Our middle lane cannot touch you to no cruise. Cannot get a man tree, Caravan Braskin. Elenani homemade a tunnel. Kumawara, a Tinantala, Alawara, a Tinatulum Sirilla, I didn't bring that up. I'm a little. The community and I want to go one. I could be looking pig filler. As I'm not going yes.
Excessive rain destroy farmlands. High temperatures destroy crop yields and increase crop stress.
So the man to Bora Mawaba, Alia, Anawataka, Nakatan and Yarapo and Napo Walla, Ivana Yaka. Baman you jack or Waya, Anna Moma. Jaga, Mammy, Amala Taraka.
For Kane, in the case as you mentioned, it's Kane, the Kane community and the Kane irrigation scheme. High rising temperatures with decreased rainfall means drought. Poor drought means poor yields. This impact means poor income, low income, and poverty.
Vampire Sananta, I'm not deterred by a very Chula tap and Chula Narco. Temasotia. A man Salas, Vampana Gambin Parola. I was learning the season. 10 Parola. Or a quarter and use check and get a tournament. You, I'm not going to tell you. Kahula is ever about more of you.
I'm a 1 year out, I want you as a mammy number. You will start. That is a fool.
Naturally, there's supposed to be a buffer across the reservoir or the dam, so that when you leave that buffer, or when you farm across that area, around that area, when it rains, water will push the silt into the dam. Now, when the sun goes in the 30s, the space that water will occupy will reduce. And when that reduces, little water will be in the reservoir. And so, when you need water in the dry period where there's no rain, the water will not be enough.
The man you look at Billy Gumasita Hood. Capo Bullet. Capo on Boti Bota when I had a single hand.
And then that map was for you. Nothing.
Some come and you live. Caracati be aggressive. Check out in Mantonia Simon and my pet Kaya.
Okay. There we go. So again, film is used as a communications tool for certain youth who cannot be in attendance at the COP conferences. These films serve as a surrogate for their voice. So for further information, if you want to check out the website, tiny.cc/UNFCCC. And if you want to email me for further information or future collaboration, ycrtv1@gmail.com. And there's our social media below there. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mark Terry. I will now move on to our next speech. And it is by Philo Gereis, who's our youngest panelist. He's a 15-year-old autistic and ADHD student, currently in his final years of GCSEs as he studies in Dubai. His interests are coding, horse riding, gaming, especially The Legend of Zelda and Minecraft, playing piano, making his music on the computer, writing his own stories, snorkeling, spending time with family and friends, and advocacy for youth on the spectrum. He recently became an EcoSpectrum ambassador, which I'm so proud of, which helps him combine his love for oceans and advocating for better policymaking and education for neurodivergent children in the MENA region and beyond. Philo, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. As Dana has kindly introduced me, my name is Philo. I am very honored to be here today. I'm a 15-year-old autistic student here in Dubai. While I'm certainly no expert on ocean conservation, having grown up with autism and ADHD, I am very passionate about neurodiversity and advocating for the rights and inclusion of neurodivergent people. For years, autism and autistic people have been viewed in a negative light, as though we are in some way faulty or incomplete. This was even shown by the previous use of a puzzle piece logo to represent autism, as though we were missing a piece of our puzzle, rendering us incomplete. Thankfully, in recent times, this was changed to an infinity symbol, which is a much better representation of the autistic community. For years, a cure for autism has been sought, as though we had a disease that needed to be eradicated. Therapies have been designed in order to effectively change who we are and how we respond, so that it makes life less awkward, difficult, or uncomfortable for the neurotypical people around us. For years, we have been labeled as weird or socially awkward, perhaps due to it sometimes being uncomfortable for us to make eye contact, or due to us taking our time to respond to a question or request, or even due to us occasionally needing to stim in order to regulate ourselves, such as fiddling with objects. Some things that come naturally to neurotypical people just don't come so naturally to those of us with autism. But who is to say that what neurotypicals experience is normal and what neurodivergent people experience is not? It is only due to the fact that the world we live in was designed by neurotypicals for neurotypicals. If the world and the roles were reversed, then they would be struggling just as much as we are. However, I did not come here to ingrain in your minds all of the supposedly negative traits of autism. Rather, I stand here today to highlight for you the many talents we can have, and why, despite being different, we are just as necessary to ensuring the Earth's survival as anyone else. For example, autistic people are very literal thinkers. While this can result in us struggling to understand metaphors or hidden meanings, it also means that we can have excellent logical and analytical skills, which can prove extremely useful in more logic-based fields like science, computing, and maths. In fact, some of the world's greatest scientists, including Albert Einstein, are thought to have been autistic. In addition, when we are passionate about something, we can hyperfixate on it, spending hours, days, months, or even years researching every last detail of it. While some may think that obsessions can be a negative trait, and even the word itself has a negative connotation nowadays, neurodivergent people have an innate ability to turn an obsession into something highly productive. Just think, how useful would it be to have someone on your team that is so dedicated and focused on a cause such as ocean conservation, or any cause for that matter? Someone who would notice the finest of details that most others would miss. Someone who isn't afraid to be honest and straightforward, or even finds it difficult to be dishonest in the first place. Someone who takes such pride in their work that they are a perfectionist. Ocean conservation and education, like so much of the world at the moment, needs to be far more inclusive. While some positive steps are being taken, it is certainly not enough. Autistic people around the world have so much to offer, but need to be given the chance. They may need some adjustments to be made to help them achieve their full potential, but that full potential can be truly incredible. It's not too far-fetched to think that an autistic person could easily be the one to figure out how to stop our world's need for fossil fuels, or to help developing countries to be able to find a way to transition in a more economical way, or even invent a totally new way of producing or harvesting green energy. It breaks my heart to see videos of whales and dolphins caught in large-scale fishing nets, or turtles that have plastic straws stuck inside their nostrils, or birds covered in sludge from an oil spill who now can't fly, animals who get plastic caught around their necks and can't get it off until it digs deep wounds into their flesh. Our world, our oceans, and the life in them are in danger and need all the help they can get. Let us help the best way we know how. After all, it is our future too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philo. So now I'd like to begin our panel discussion. And I'd like to introduce our first panelist who will be talking about the accessibility of education for youth on the autism spectrum, particularly in the MENA region. Dr. Mohammad Fteiha is an autism specialist currently working as a director at Al Ain University in the UAE and the former head of the speech unit at the Dubai Autism Center. He's additionally an ADOS examiner and a PROMT therapist with expertise in special and inclusive education consultancy. Dr. Mohammad Fteiha, my question is, and I think is a very, very important question that really resembles what our panel really is about, and it is why, what do we need to do to maximize accessibility for youth on the autism spectrum in the MENA region in order to inspire them to take ocean action as a region that is so socio-politically impacted by the impact of the ocean crisis, but as well we withhold the highest autism rates in the world?
Thank you first, Dana, for the invitation and also for this great opportunity. I think having such topic in the COP28 is an important one. Always we talk about inclusivity and including all people and no one left behind. So for me, inclusivity, it means not excluding anyone. So we all of us are caring about this planet, and we all should work toward achieving the sustainability goals. Thank you, Mark, for the great presentation also, which give a great highlights about the importance of inclusivity and the talent that our students with autism spectrum disorder or any other disability they are having, in which we need just to empower them and to give them the opportunity and the chance. And thank you, Phil, for the great presentation or the great speech that you give. It reflects that we have an advocates, we have a great success stories that we can really build on. Talking about accessibility and improving the accessibility for our individual with autism and even other related disabilities, I'm a believer of involving all these related activities in the early stage. We shouldn't think on this only on the higher education or in a school. We need to start even from nurseries or before nurseries, creating a proper awareness. Yes, we need to take in our consideration the limitations or the challenges that our beloved individuals with autism having, like communication, social issues, sensory-related issues, which not preventing them from giving a lot for the community. Again, we need to give them the chance. It's us who are unfortunately preventing them from being a part of our community. At Abu Dhabi University, just one of the examples that we are doing to support the children and individuals with autism, we annually run an Art for Autism competition, which is really, I hope that I can share some of those artworks with you. It's something amazing. For me, I match it with Picasso or with other great art workers in the world. It's really an amazing. So we as a community, I think we need to play a huge role on that. So education and awareness is important. And the good part maybe we are having here in UAE, that awareness campaigns are really spread all over, not specifically during the month of April. We have a lot of activities during the whole year to spread awareness, but we need to work with the policymakers, stakeholders, other parents, other people involved with the ocean education to encourage and to facilitate the support of our individual autism to be part of such activity. Collaboration and partnership is important. We have in UAE specifically, and also international and regional in the MENA region, we have a lot of associations and organizations are caring about environment and ocean education. So it's good to build that collaboration with those institutions. I remember when I worked at Dubai Autism Center, we had this chance to work with Emirates Environmental Agency, in which we did a lot of activities on the beach, doing cleaning. So yes, it was like one activity during the semester, but it reflects, it supports including our students within the community. I think infrastructure and accessibility is an important part also, because if we don't provide them with the proper infrastructure and the proper accessibility access, it will be also a challenge and issue for them. Sorry for that. I don't like to say them or we. We are all us. We are all a human, and each one of us having a challenges, having an issue. I'm a person with disability, right? I'm wearing so we have to look at it from this side. I hope that we reach an era that we don't say we and them. All of us, we are working together for a cause, as you mentioned, regardless what is that cause. I think also training is an important training for our support team. I remember when we work at the Dubai Autism Center, even we did the workshops for secretaries, for drivers, for all who are involved with the teaching and learning process, because we cannot separate them. This is a community that we are living in, and we need to give a chance and opportunity for all who is living on this community. Community engagement and inclusion is an important, having such activity similar to this one. It's a great, maybe having and highlighting more of those activities in the future. I'm sure a lot of schools now adopting several activities related to sustainability, education, including all of our students. We missed always a part which we call in education a hidden curriculum. Hidden curriculum is not that the textbook curriculum, it's the curriculum that we build within our community. So we teach our students how to act, how to behave, how to respond, how to manage their time, how to deal with their colleagues. This is not within the textbook that we are having. So including all together, I think is an important to work on this. Advocacy is an important, and we have great example of advocacy that we are seeing, mashallah. I think we need to use these chances more and more. Those are some strategies maybe helping to increase the accessibility and inclusivity for our individual with autism to be more active and also empowered in dealing with anything related to ocean education.
Absolutely. I think your point about how we need to consider the awareness and accessibility and inclusivity, and we need to consider from a very young age, is really, really important. And it really does, I think, encapsulate why we're all here at COP, why so many youth are at COP. It's because we are so behind. We are so late to consider communities like the neurodivergent community and like so many other vulnerable and indigenous communities that are not present here today, that are not privileged enough to be here today. And we need training, exactly as you said. We need to learn and relearn and unlearn so many different habits that we as a society have developed, because we live in a society, as Philo has said, that is neurotypical, that is led by neurotypical individuals and by individuals who may not understand the importance of the ocean crisis and how it impacts every cell in our bodies, us as human beings. We depend on our oceans. And I think this leads very, very well to my other youth delegate and representative and ambassador for EcoSpectrum, Obaid Hameli. Obaid Hameli has a very interesting ocean story that I hope that you can talk about, because the way that we met is through your collection of seashells, and I'm a fellow seashell collector. And I'd like to kind of highlight how you from a young age have also been kind of looking at the intersectionality between the ocean, and have seen and have observed how the ocean crisis in your home, in your society, in your community has impacted you as an individual on the spectrum. Can you tell us more about that?
Here. Don't worry, you can do this.
You can do it. Just relax and start. Try to remember something related to your activities that you are doing, and I'm sure you will do it.
It started like months and months back when I'm interested to collect seashells, and I just say to myself, how interesting of these shapes and colors, and not just the one group, but multiple groups of shapes and sizes. And I start collecting more of a seashell hunt, from small to the largest. But the largest are just very rare to find. Where I live was once the ocean, but then it's just changed by itself. And that's why there's remains of seashells everywhere in the sand, even at backyard. And I come above some bland white colored of seashells. Some are conch, some are oddities of the shapes, and some are beautiful colors, like ones are yellow, and some are like purplish or pinkish color tone. And some are interesting oddities inside. Like the one time I found one seashell that's really huge, but all I find is a remaining of let's just say, a deceased hermit crab owner. And I just felt sorry for the owner of a hermit crab, and I respectfully just removed it. I didn't mean it, but it's just deceased before I find out. But still, I love type of seashells everywhere. And then, sooner or later, I became interested for the ocean of environment itself, because I found out hermit crabs really do love to have a protection for seashells, a lot. And since the recent of the acidic in the ocean, like it affects the acid on the seashells, now it became harder to find specific seashells, or you want to count as seashells, like plastic caps on the top, and even shattered glasses count as shells. So that's why I started collecting the remaining of seashells, and I had my personal plans to return it to the owners of the to the hermit crabs themselves, if I find one of them someday, one of the hermit crabs, and show it to them. There's seashells for a new home, and that's why I just started to care about the ocean as a whole. And not just the hermit crabs, but the entire marine ecosystem itself. And I do really care about them. I really do. And so much so, that's why I'm here in COP28. So.
It's great to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to be with you, everyone. And,
can I ask a question? Or?
Of course.
Thank you, Dana.
Yeah, you can ask a question.
So from your experience, did you find that there is a need for educating others on the importance of caring for our ocean?
Caring for ocean.
Like educating people, or
Yes, I do. I do see it to give them educating about the ocean and the importance of the whole for our entire planet, and the whole ecosystem. We depend on them, and they needing us to protect them. And I do see it works for the education.
Great.
So, any other questions?
It's perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Obaid. Can you all tell why I chose Obaid? Fascinating. And I think that's how all of us start in ocean conservation in general. I think we all have a story. And it's really interesting that this is not always the typical way that the ocean crisis and the climate crisis is introduced in forums like these. And I think it really does impact the way that everyone else views it. And I think that's also how the neurodivergent community and the autistic community has also has a lot of stereotypes involved, because we don't get to hear stories like these often. And most importantly, we don't get to hear stories in forums like COP28, like the UN forums, like formal conversations that we're having today, when in actuality, these are the discussions that we're supposed to have. We need to preserve that feeling of finding a seashell and then seeing a hermit crab inside, and then pushing it away, but then keeping the remains. This is the beauty of how the ocean links all of us together. We all have a very specific and unique story to the ocean that then grows to become into a more formal and technical discussion about policy making and about advancing the education system and becoming entrepreneurs and founders of societies, of organizations, of projects that are going to discuss, that are going to advance the research around the oceans, because it hasn't been that long. And as I've said before, especially with education for the neurodivergent community as well as the ocean, these two are such niche topics, and we are so behind in its research and its discovery. But I think it all starts with stories like Obaid's. And this links very, very well to Dr. Mark Terry as well and his project, because we don't talk about filmmaking enough in climate, I think. And I think it has such a positive role and such a vital role, because without it we lose that sense of connection. We lose that sense of accessibility as well. There's so much accessibility in watching people's stories, seeing how they're living, and then reflecting on that, and then producing our own movies as well, and producing our own views and perspectives into movies, into things that are accessible, into art. So I hope that you can as well tell us more about that, because you have very distinct perspectives. You went to Ghana, and as well you're from the UK, and you're from Canada. So these are very, very two different communities. So how is it connected through film?
Well, we try to connect as much of the world as possible through the project. Right now, there's 750 films that have been created by young people from around the world on all 7 continents, including Antarctica. And we can't get more inclusive than that, geospatially. And also film has had this unique technique that I mentioned earlier, this unique affordance of being able to present the visible evidence of climate change, which really helps the non-scientific policymaker or the non-scientific person in general have a better understanding of what these issues are. Because previous to, say, 2009, the main data delivery system for the policymakers at the UN were scientifically written academic papers, peer-reviewed papers, that are written for a certain kind of audience. Not the average person. And we sometimes forget that not all policymakers have that kind of scientific background. So they need some extra support, some additional communication tools. And this is where film fits in quite nicely, because it provides a visual context to these papers as well. And in addition to that, we find that film is an excellent and very accessible communications tool for the global community of youth. Because unlike just 20 years ago, almost every young person in the world has access to some kind of recording equipment, i.e. the phone. Exactly. And they all know how to operate it, and there's even editing software built into many of the programs and apps that are on the phone. So they're better equipped than the previous generation was with film. And because they have that equipment, they can go out and tell stories in places and in communities that are rarely represented here at the COP conferences. And specifically, I'm talking about indigenous communities, remote communities in the far Arctic, for example, or deep in the Amazon jungle. This is where we go to reach the young people that live there and have them tell stories about their unique experiences. Because the whole idea of the United Nations is to be as inclusive as possible when we're discussing issues that are global in nature. And the best way to have those remote communities be represented is through film. It provides a surrogacy in a way for those people that can't be here and for the policymakers that can't be there. Okay, so we bring the world together through film. And this holds true for young people with physical and mental disabilities as well. What they might not be able to say themselves in person, they can say through film and through the storytelling narratives that they create. And it's also a uniquely collaborative enterprise, because not only do they work together in creating their individual film projects, but they develop new friendships and new collaborations going forward when they're placed on the Youth Climate Report map. They find other young people telling similar stories, and they can reach out to them and work together. This has happened several times since 2016, where different continents, not just different countries, have found each other telling similar stories and have worked together on larger film projects that have been presented right here at the COP conferences. So that's basically where film comes from and my addiction to it.
I think I have to be addicted now. But yeah, I think art can take so many different forms. And I think it's it kind of encapsulates the foundations of neurodiversity, is that there are so many different forms and ways to make education accessible. And this panel really tries to highlight that. We've got so many different interests and so many different backgrounds and experiences and expertise. And we try to kind of capture all of that to try and convey the message that this is how society is meant to be built. It's not meant to be one solid structure that is a one-size-fits-all. And especially in addressing ocean conservation issues. Because yes, we do share one oceans, but our problems and our crises are very, very localized, especially when we can see that very, very clearly in the Middle East. But I'd like to also go back to Philo, because you... Yes.
All right. So before you ask me anything, I'd just quickly like to say that I really like what's been said before, especially about how we need to be supporting the neurodivergent people from a young age, because autistic people and other neurodivergent people can actually do something called masking, which isn't always intentional, and it's basically when they hide their true self in order to fit in. So imagine forcing yourself to be someone you're not for your entire life, just in order to be seen as normal, when you already are and you don't need to be. So
it's a very good point, and that is very underrepresented.
So
would you like to say something else?
So are there any questions you'd like to ask? Or?
Yes. I'd like to know, because you also have so many different interests and they're very, very diverse, what got you interested in ocean conservation issues?
Okay, that's actually a great question. So for as long as I can remember, I have been going to Sharm el-Sheikh every year in the summer with my family. And as I'm certain all of you who are attending here would remember, Sharm el-Sheikh was actually the site of last year's COP27 conference. And I've always loved swimming, snorkeling, and observing the variety of marine life in the Red Sea, especially the parrotfish, which I like to call rainbow fish because of their exotic colors. Perhaps my biggest inspiration, though, is my older cousin, Gabby, and she's currently studying to become a marine biologist. And whenever we're in the sea, I make sure to keep out an eye for any litter that I can remove, whether that be a piece of acrylic sign, or floating water bottles, or pieces of plastic, or even one time an actual whole floating papaya. Yes, I actually found a papaya while I was on holiday in the Maldives, in the middle of the water. Something that we'd also been noticing in more recent years is that the corals are whitening or bleaching, which is shocking, as the seas around Egypt and the MENA region are known to be some of the most resilient. So if this is happening in the resilient seas, I don't want to imagine what's happening in more vulnerable areas of the oceans.
Yeah, exactly. I think that this conversation as well is really, really missing. And it encapsulates how late we are. And it's very heartbreaking that even in the MENA region, where our seas are very, very resilient, it's been considered a hope spot by Mission Blue for coral reefs. And if they're bleaching, what is happening to the rest of the world? What is happening to our marine ecosystems? What is happening to us, to our bodies that are dependent and reliant on our oceans? But I'd like to go back to Dr. Mohammad Fteiha. I think as well a very, very important question that we need to consider is how can MENA students lead the movement globally? Because again, we do share one ocean. And we are in this kind of in the same boat together. We are going through very, very similar issues, though localized, but we are all kind of connected through those issues. So from our successes in the Middle East, I think we've been renowned in making education accessible, because look at how representative the Middle East has been. How can we take that on globally?
This is another great question. But again, let me just also continue on what Dr. Mary started in ending in his speech about the policies and procedure, and the expert on like we need to close the gap between those policy makers and decision makers and the expert in the field. And always I feel that there is an issue with the implementation. Sometimes we have great procedures, we have great policies, but when it comes to the reality or implementing those procedures and policy, we end up doing nothing. With the great examples from like different countries. The issue that we are facing in MENA region, like there is a lot of challenges again. Yes, we are in a globalization era, we are open for all, but I believe that the mindset should be also changed, being open more to the to other countries, try to benefit from their success stories. We don't need to start from scratch. We need to build on what other reach to. So I believe advocacy as an awareness is an important part. Our students can lead on this. We have a great ambassadors. And they can be really a role model. In each school now we have, they call it a students' council, or in some of the schools they call them Nukhba group or Nukhba leadership. Others, they give them a specific name. Those can be really lead and give a real example by involving other students, by creating an awareness campaign, by connecting with other schools. We did a study previously about centralization and decentralization in the school system, and we found majority of the outcome of our result from students, from teachers, they believe that it should be decentralized, which give them some freedom to connect with the international schools, collaborate, getting some ideas from overseas and try to collaborate with each other. Innovation solutions, I think our students also, they can, if we build it from early ages, I'm sure they can give a great ideas. Even if it is simple, just we can build on it more and more to make it something really as we can achieve something from behind it. Collaboration between different countries, different institutions, not necessarily in the same region or in the same country. It can be overseas. Now we have the technology helping us and giving us a great opportunity of accessing each information and each visions and activities. So I think this can help our students to engage more. Educational outreach program, I think something also can, like an exchange program supporting our students to give them a clear perspective about what's happening, and then they can engage with a lot of activities. I'm a believer of giving an opportunity for our students. They need to lead. If we don't give them the chance to lead and we don't empower them, they will be ending up just following what the others just telling them. So we need to give them this chance and empower them as much as we can. I know that there is sometimes still the culture sensitivities issues are there, but I think with the globalization, with a new concept of working together and teamwork and leadership, can be also something that we can come up over and work together to achieve a lot of goals. Having an association by itself, creating those association as a partners with international institutions, I think will help also our students, and it will give them another perspective, not just the local perspective that we are having, or their country perspective. So I think those ideas, it help to make our youth or our students taking some leads in supporting ocean education and solving a lot of challenges that we are facing.
Yes, I agree. I think we're really missing the leadership aspect for neurodivergent inclusivity to fully take action and to fully take place. And it's because we've taken so long to initiate that conversation, I think, is the issue. But it's a start. We're starting. And I think with the different formats that we've got of art and filmmaking and also creating those accessible resources and sharing them, and especially with the globalization that the world is going through now, and I think with also the perspective that the climate change crisis is, and the ocean crisis is kind of connecting us all together, it's putting us all kind of in the same spot with the same kind of concerns, and it's because we see it firsthand. But I'd like to kind of return to the youth delegates. Obaid, I'd love to know, what do you wish young people knew about youth on the autism spectrum, so you can lead that conversation?
Well, from my point of view, So, from my point of view, I kind of wish that in the group would know more better, right? So, take for Amir, for example, right? Back in my youth, when I was like younger age, when my parents discovered that I'm in an autism spectrum, they were like a little shocked to find out I got autism. And at the time, I don't know what that means because I was an impressionably young age for myself. And during my youthful days, they take me to the place called Emirates Autism Center. And that's the place where I get started through all the grades of the school throughout my life, from grade 1 all the way 9th. But then I just go to the next school, so I got to finish from 10th to 12th grade in high school. So once I finish all the grades, all that's left, going to the college. And now, here I am currently, third year in Liwa College. I'm part of the group media, digital media, bachelor, and plus I'm part of the student council, member. And to be honest, I would like to thank my parents so much throughout the years, including my mom, my dad, my siblings, and everyone I love so dearly to call a family. And I appreciate every single one of them to accept me, that I'm no difference to them, no difference. Just a part of a family. Even I have autism, they still accept me as an inclusive. And that's what I want to wish for every single one of them.
Thank you. And I'd like to also turn to Philo. What do you wish people knew about young people on the autism spectrum?
Honestly, many things. But I'll share with you the main things, because if I said all of them, then we'd be here forever. But the main things, there's nothing inherently wrong with autistic people. We're just as normal as neurotypical people are. We're just different. Just like someone might have blue eyes or brown, straight hair or curly, be tall or short. These differences just add to the wonderful variety of people on Earth. As I mentioned in my speech, most of our problems are actually just caused by the fact that society is run by neurotypical people for neurotypical people. I think we are highly misunderstood and underestimated due to the negativity surrounding autism, which is caused mostly by misconceptions. It is even still labeled as a disorder in many countries, despite it simply being a difference that can actually be highly beneficial. However, due to the large amount of misconceptions and the lack of support, we may not even be given the chance, which is very disheartening.
Yeah. You said everything. I think that it's a very, very important perspective to have. And it's very, very important for that perspective to lead the conversation and to lead action. and to lead action, especially for our climate, because of how diverse our issues are and how diverse our takes on it can be. And I think, Dr. Mark Thayer, you encapsulated that very, very well in your films, because you've gathered films from over 180 countries, and they all pose so many different perspectives, but so admirably, it's also very representative of youth on the autism spectrum and neurodivergent youth. And something that I really love to talk about is the blue mind theory. And it is how we are so connected to the ocean that it translates to what we get to do for action, and how we find kind of our best method to advocate for that very, very specific purpose and very, very specific cause. And for me, that was EcoSpectrum. For you, that was Youth Climate Report. So I'd like to ask, how can we enhance the inclusivity of youth on the autism spectrum through filmmaking that is specifically about ocean conservation?
Well, I think any organization that is into ocean conservation could establish a program for people with autism or neurodivergency, whereby film training sessions and specific workshops that consider those specific participants can be introduced, and then have the participants be recruited to participate in the program. I know the Youth Climate Report is always looking for films that represent these communities, and in all communities throughout the world. One of the interesting things that I've noticed is we have 5 films out of the 750 that are spoken in languages that are spoken by less than 3,000 people in the world. So this becomes a very important aspect of representation when you consider this is the 2nd year of the United Nations International Decade for Indigenous Languages. So helping protect and preserve these languages that are disappearing throughout the world is very important in providing that kind of inclusivity that we're looking for on a global scale. And by having participants that are neurodivergent represents that community as well. And what I find people that I know that work in film, it's either a very collective enterprise or a very solitary enterprise. You know, you can work on a set with several people, each with a specific assignment. They all kind of come together in the artistic creation of the final product, but usually it's the director or the editor that sits alone in his edit suite putting everything together, which is another artistic element of the creation process. And I find that people on the neurodivergency scale or spectrum appreciate that. You know, if they don't want to work with the large crowd, they're very comfortable working alone. And again, they get to tell their story in a different way than they do face-to-face, right? There's a different communication opportunity available to them where they often find their voice, right? And they can share their thoughts, their feelings, and what they consider to be important about ocean issues or climate change in general with those in power and those that need to hear from that community.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'd like to end on one final note before we turn to the Q&A session. And I'd like to call on our panelists to answer the question of what is your call to action? Because I think that this event is really, really important to build the foundations that we need to initiate that conversation about the intersectionalities between ocean conservation and marine protection, as well as how we can involve youth on the autism spectrum and neurodivergent inclusivity within that very, very niche topic and very, very niche subject, so that we can truly, truly tackle each and every issue that is present in a multitude of different communities who are dealing with a multitude of different issues regarding the ocean crisis. And I'd like to start with Dr. Marteri. What is your call to action?
Well, my call to action would be to have organizations like EcoSpectrum set up an opportunity for a workshop or a training session for those on the spectrum. And I would be very happy to conduct these workshops and training sessions and shepherd the participants through the entire process so that by next year we will have a slew of films that we can show at COP29 from that community.
Hopefully. Philo, would you like to give us your call to action?
My call to action, well, it's related to a third point that I wanted to make, and it's that due to society not being designed for us, many things, including those related to ocean conservation, are not very accessible to us with autism. For example, Gabby, you remember I mentioned her earlier, she's my older cousin. She went on an ocean conservation volunteering trip to Mozambique one time, and when I thought about whether I'd be able to do something similar, I realized it might not be possible because there are many things, such as potential sensory overstimulation, not being able to choose which food you eat, or having to organize everything yourself for travel, that those things can be very difficult for neurodivergent people, especially without support. It could be achieved with some simple support and adjustments, but sadly they are mostly unavailable. So my call to action would be that we need to change the way society views autism and treats people with autism to better allow us to keep our unique traits and use them to help others. Like, you've heard this before, help us help you. That's what my call to action would be.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Philo. Dr. Mohammed, would you like to say?
As an educationist, I believe that education should be like one of the call for action, education for change. We believe on this at Abu Dhabi University. During this month, we conducted several workshops for students, grade 11, grade 12, undergraduate, postgraduate students, teachers, which was attended by thousands of attendees, talking about sustainability and how we embed sustainability in our curriculums, including the climate change and a lot of variables related to that. And always I said that if we want to achieve the 17 SDGs, the fourth one is the important one, which is the education. Without the education, we will not be able to do anything. So we have to spread awareness about all things related to the sustainability, ocean education, our life, climate change, try to educate ourselves, others, attend, participate in workshops, support those initiatives as much as we can. Because again, as I said, one hand cannot clap alone. We have to work all together to achieve such goal. And with education, I'm sure we will be able to do such things.
Thank you so much. Obaid, would you like to finish us off by your call to action?
What is it called? Is it called?
What is the action that you are looking to achieve or you want to achieve out of this discussion? As a media person, you are a media person also.
Yeah. Well, while I'm still improving in media, I will achieve the dream for how should I say? For a digital medium, a member like myself, I'll try to do my best, and one day I'll just be, how should I say, I'm sorry, I just have a little bit of trouble thinking for myself. Try my best to explain through my thoughts through. And
To spread awareness also.
yeah, and in media, I will try my best to spread awareness in every single month in each of the subjects and topics of awarenesses. From some are in March, some are in June, some are in October, some are in December sometimes, some of them. When I'm part of a meeting, I'll try to tackle it for all the subjects, spread awareness of here on there, and doing my best to explaining what's about the subject and telling them about how it's important. And some people have with conditions, some are exclusively to male or female for awareness months of subjects and topics, and some are animals as well, awareness. So that's what I want to achieve and just do my best while I'm improving currently.
Thank you. This is the end of our panel discussion. I'd like to highlight how grateful I am for being joined by such amazing minds and being able to hear the beautiful ocean stories by the young delegates. I've learned so much, even though I had to write the bios of every panelist beforehand and have geeked over having this beautiful and wonderful set of panelists present today. Final remarks. I'd like to say, please listen to these call to actions. And when I mean listen, and when I say listen, I mean truly, truly listen attentively. And listen with an open heart and an open mind. This is a conversation that hasn't been taken up by COP, by the UNFCCC, by state delegates. It needs to be included in policies. It needs to be actioned into education worldwide, not just in the MENA region. And it needs to be led by youth who are on the spectrum. They have the experiences, they have the knowledge, and they have the ability to lead. They just lack the resources and the accessibility, and also the leaders who are willing to listen. I'd like to end also by saying, Save the Nile. These are those from my new initiative called Dasfour Initiative, aiming to elevate the Bedouin women of Egypt to crochet sustainable dolls that are stuffed with plastic collected from the Red Sea and the Nile. Conserve the Red Sea. Look down, look north, and protect the ice shield. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you so much to my panelists, and a special thank you to the wonderful guardians who, without them, Philo and Obaid wouldn't be here today. So thank you for allowing us to listen to their beautiful stories, and thank you for being here. The floor is open to questions. Please, if you have any questions, direct them on the panel to Dr. Mark Terry or Dr. Mohammad Fteiha. If you have any questions dedicated to Philo and Obaid, please leave them to the end for a conversation. They'll be here towards the end of the panel if you have any questions directed to them. Please raise your hand if you have a question.
I need a microphone because I'm a bit sick as well, but thank you so much, Dana, for organizing such an amazing panel. I personally am also on the spectrum, and I find conferences like this very emotionally draining, especially the lights, like all these little things that people don't notice, but we do. It adds up, and especially with these topics that are so close to our hearts, especially as someone with autism, it really touches our hearts. We really hyperfixate on these topics, and being in environments where people might not be listening and having to constantly repeat ourselves under these lights, under these sounds, it's a lot. So I also have questions for the youth panelists as well, but I could ask after or maybe try to merge it. But I'm just wondering, how can we make these high-level discussions more inclusive in the sense that we don't have to deal with these accumulations of overstimulation, all these different aspects, and ensure that at the end of the day, we're not completely emotionally exhausted? And how are we able to create a language that people understand collectively, again, through filmmaking, the way we speak about these topics, as you mentioned, it's like we bring so much love and passion into this, and it is such a crucial emotion that's lacking from these discussions. So I know this is more of a comment than a question, but I just would like to learn more about how maybe at COP29 we could bring more neurodivergent youth and integrate this such rare emotion into these panel discussions through the IPCC, even through these really scientific documents. How can we integrate more love and emotion into them?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we need to start by ourselves. We need to, and I think it's important to have the inclusive education as a priority. I know still we have an issue in the MENA region that we believe more on the special education centers, individualization, which is not effective really. We need always to put the priority for inclusive education. If there is a need later for a supportive services, even it can be done within the school. By this way, we reduce those issues related to. I consider it part of discrimination, actually. All of our students, when you are, I tell my students in the postgraduate diploma in teaching, when you have students in your class, they are varied students. You will not have all of them having 100 point or A or B+. You will have under the, what they call it, the normal distribution curve, which we all human match under that one. So we have to think about it from this perspective. Each one of us having ability, having strength, having areas of improvement. I will not say weaknesses, it's just areas of improvement that we need to work on it. If we work from this inclusive perspective, I think we will reach to an era that we will forget those label items and deal with each other as a human rather than as a labels.
Yeah, I also think that there's opportunities available at the UNFCCC for more involvement for those on the spectrum in different ways. If those on the spectrum don't want to travel and actually be at the COP conferences, we do have the digital technology today to allow their participation. We can have a Zoom conference call where they can stay in the comfort of their home, yet still have a voice at these conferences. I'm sure my colleague at the end of the table here would like to speak more about digital media and all the various avenues that are available. It doesn't have to be live either. It can be a pre-recorded message that is delivered to the conference as well. So I think that we do have the technology for further inclusivity and involvement, but the UNFCCC has to let that community know that these opportunities are available.
Yeah, and just to add to that note as well, at EcoSpectrum, something that we're really trying to do is gather the resources that you've spoken about, like the IPCC reports, and really alter them to suit the needs of youth on the autism spectrum or neurodivergent youth. And again, it's a spectrum. And I think that we still have a long way to go because we're still cut short on the research. And we're cut short on the funding, we've got short on the representation as well, because again, the people leading the process, the people leading this, it's a systematic thing that we need to tackle. It's taking way too much time, and I'm in no way insinuating that that's the right way to go about it. But it needs to accelerate. I agree with what you said, it needs to accelerate. But it can be accelerated by our hands. Because we are the ones in charge, essentially. And if society is built for neurotypical people, then neurotypical people need to change that. The neurotypical people need to take that initiative and take that responsibility and agree and research and learn and then change. And again, as I've mentioned before, relearn and learn again and then change and then build those barriers down, break them down and then build build new structures that are inclusive, that are accessible, that do not have any stops, any limits to what we can say, what we can't say, or what we can do and what we can't do, who's in charge and who isn't in charge. It's a very complex issue. I think we've got amazing experts who are going to lead this project, and I think we've got as well amazing youth here present that are also, and even present as well online, that are going to be leading definitely that change. But I guess we have to wait and see.
Giving the opportunity is an important. Now, regardless of the level of the child or the individual, now we are having a lot of platforms. We have the assistive technology. It's a huge tools that really impacting our students and let them to be part of our community easily. So we need to create this chance or opportunity for them.
And lead with ocean stories, and lead with love, and lead with emotion. Because these things are not typical in these forums, unfortunately. But we also have to make them always present. They're always existent, they're always here. So yeah, don't be desensitized and dehumanized. We already have enough of that. We need to preserve it, and we need to preserve that emotion. Slowly dying out, but we will preserve it as youth. And if we've got people like Philo and Obaid present, then I'm sure it's in good hands. We're open to more questions.
Thank you so much for this panel. It's a great inspiration for me. My name is Giulia Traversi. I'm Italian and I work for the European Disability Forum. We are an organization of persons with disabilities, and we try to represent persons with disabilities and their families in Europe. So I don't have a specific question. I just wanted to, I'm glad that I was sitting here and I heard your stories. And climate action, ocean action, it's something that we are looking into it. As it was said before, we strongly believe in the role of inclusive education, and we believe that stronger we can make a difference. Well, I'm happy to be here, and I know that next COP will be in Europe. We don't know where, but the aim and the objective is to make it accessible. This COP is accessible maybe sometimes for persons with physical disabilities, but there are insufficient things regarding accessibility to different meetings, for example, for persons with hearing impairments or visual impairments. So my question or my comment would be how we can stronger together make sure that persons with disabilities, persons in the spectrum of autism can really be heard, and how we can bridge this gap between us and the policy making, because it's great that we are here, and I'm seeing, for example, in comparison to the previous COP, much more people with disabilities that they are trying to be engaged, trying to be involved, but the negotiation, they are still closed. It's very difficult to reach that delegates, as you correctly said before. It's difficult to have a say in the text of the negotiation, and without this, it's very difficult to really have an impact. So it's just, I believe that together, if we try to coordinate, if we have a unite voice, we can really start changing things and make sure that, we are we are included in this fight against climate change. But thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Can I lead the discussion? I think when we're talking about policy, it's exactly as you said. It happens behind closed doors, which is the biggest issue, because it's not just inaccessible for neurodivergent youth, it's accessible for any youth. To even begin to understand. And I think the turning points for me when being engaged in climate and the ocean crisis is I needed to understand and I needed to accept that these forums were not made for us. They're not made for youth, let alone neurodivergent youth. That being said, it must change, because forms like these, we see protests, we see actions calling for an equitable fossil fuel phase out. We're calling for an equitable and free future. And that will never truly change, that will never be achieved if even the space that we're in isn't accessible. If even the rooms that we're supposed to be in we cannot enter. Again, I think it's a much longer discussion. I think it's very, very complex. But I think advocacy works. And I think as well that, again, preserving these ocean stories and having these ocean stories present, having these emotions present, because we don't have them present, will change the narrative. And it has changed the narrative before, and it will do that. It will continue to do that again until that is the norm, until this system changes. I think that's how policy is created, and that's also how policy is destructed. But yeah, I'd love to hear as well you guys' comments, if you have any.
It's a matter of time. I believe that it will take some time, but by the end, the rights will be there. As we said, and there is no. We are all human. We work together to achieve those goals. I like when both Obaid and Phil introduced themselves. They said we are having autism, as they're saying that we are having a headache or abdominal pain. So it's part of the human life in general. So this is what the perspective that we need. So I hope by such forums, such policies, such in collaboration with each other, we'll do a lot of change, I'm sure.
Yeah. Any more questions from the audience? Yes.
I guess this would be kind of a icebreaker for everyone in the room. I mean, especially the panelists. The backstory: my brother is 13 years old, and he has more severe autism, more than I do. But he is very interested in climate change, and a way he was. Well, growing up, I always viewed it as a disability, but it hurt more seeing my brother go through that, because I see everything he has as a superpower, and that's how I started wording it. It's like, what, your superpower is doing this, and he started doing climate protests on Roblox and Minecraft, and he organizes people on servers, and he has like 500 followers. They come to his servers every Friday, and they protest on Minecraft, and I think it's so beautiful, because that's his superpower. He's organizing on Minecraft. It's a way that he is really happy. It's a way he's able to integrate his superpower to mobilize youth all across the world on Minecraft. Who knows what they're doing? We don't see their face, but he could be changing so many lives just by doing that. For all of you on the panel, what's your superpower that you bring to this movement, unique to you, and how have you been seeing it grow within the climate movement?
Start from
From me? Okay. My superpower are these. I've been very outspoken about them because I do view it as a superpower. It's harvesting the already existent skills of my community in Egypt and making it into something beautiful. And also trying to really implement change in that and implement something that is radical in my own way, because it's non-existent in where I live, but it's existent here, and hopefully that spreads, and the art of crocheting and craft making spreads as well, because I think it makes such a difference. For me, it helped me get over, or not get over, but deal with the passing of someone very, very close to me, is through making these. And it is my granddad. This project is called Asfur Initiative. It's named after him. But I view that as my superpower.
Well, you probably guess what my superpower is. But more specifically, it's engaging youth around the world to produce these short documentary films for the COP conferences. And what I do is I provide specific training that matches the needs and the requirements of the policymakers here at the UN. Over the years, we've developed a certain style for the way the films are to look and the kind of content to provide. And then it becomes a very valuable resource. And on top of that, giving young people around the world an opportunity to participate directly in the policy process at the COP conferences through the surrogacy of film is something I find very exciting, and it keeps me going, and it makes me want to reach out to as many remote communities as possible to do that. And I would like to invite your brother to record one of his Minecraft sessions, right? And then have them discuss climate change as they're playing the game and send that in to me. I think that would be a fantastic and very, very different youth climate report. And again, my email address is ycrtv1@gmail.com.
For me, this is something that actually I wouldn't really define it as a superpower, but rather just something amazing, because superpowers generally in like fiction and stuff is something that not everyone has. That this is just, it's something that's not necessarily unique to me. Everyone has it. We just need to know to use it. And that is a few things: passion, compassion, empathy, and love. Because, as was said before, we can't be completely emotionless in this. That's what is destroying the world in the first place. So we need to be able to use our compassion and our empathy and our strong emotions in order to be able to like bring this world back and prevent everything bad that's going on.
For me, it's my students. When I saw any progress, even a simple progress with them, it's really a motivation and empowering me to continue and give me more strength to work and work more. I finished my Master in Speech and Language Therapy in 1998. So during that time, like a lot of limitations and issue, but we worked, like we were building our tools alone, working on learning materials, try to have those proper ones. But when we see any progress or achievement with our students, like we celebrate this. So it's considered like a motivation always for us.
Well, I don't call it superpower as well, but it's something else. Just you know, everyone has their own, you know, sometimes you can, sometimes you don't, and others capable. Like, how should I say, there's so many history I can recall it. Some are like extraordinary, you know, you could just say wow, like how is he or she can do it. And some are a specialty, I would say, for quote-unquote superpower. But I don't call it superpower in a fictional world. I mean, that's their own thing, you know. You do what you do. But if you want to apply superpower in real life, that's a different story. Calling it superpower is like looking at the, axolotl, and you just say, oh, their limbs can be cut off, but they'll regrow back. What about us? Well, they're amphibians and we're mammals, so that's a different story. For if you try to attempt yourself, be my guest, it won't grow back. That's not really a superpower, but the point is, just calling a superpower in autism, it's like, you know, if you're really good at it, really, really good, and that's the point for if you call it superpower. So there. That is all.
Thank you. And we are right on time. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending once again. I hope you enjoyed the panel, and if you'd like to stay a bit to chat to Philo or Obaid, if you have any questions, please do. Thank you so much.